Hello, I'm Patricia Shafarsik, and I'm here today with Elly Roche. I guess what I'd like to start off with was explaining where you were born and your early life. Can you sort of talk about your family and where you were born?
Well, I was born in Santa Cruz and in 1926, and my father's name was Hans Kinzli, and my mother's name was Bertha Kinzli. What else?
Well, where were they from? Can you sort of explain that?
My father was born in Switzerland, and my mother was born in Alameda, California.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't remember how long or where they were. They were married, I think, in Alameda. I'm not that sure.
How did your dad come to the United States?
He came with his older brother Fred and his next brother Ernest, and a aunt and a sister Lisetta, and they came. I have the dates somewhere when they came, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say.
So they came to Alameda did they have connections or someone here?
No, they came to Santa Cruz, and they had a cousin that lived. No, take all of that back. The older brother came to this country by himself, and he had a house in, I think in Santa Cruz. I'm not that 100% sure, but he was living here in the United States when they by himself, and then as I say, then he brought the other three children, or brothers and sister, over here.
So did he go back and get them, or he just sent for them?
No, he went back after them.
Oh, right. So there were no parents. The parents were
Not
already
at that
gone?
time. Later, my father's mother and father and Emma, who was when she married Bauhofer, they came, and then there was another sister who was married back there, and they came later.
So how many were in his family?
6.
And they all ended up here in the United States?
Yeah.
Starting with the brother, Kinzli.
Yes. Fred.
Oh, right. Fred was the
Yeah.
first one.
Mhm.
And so what did they do here? They came to Santa Cruz, and what kind of work did they have at that time?
Well, my father was, I think, 11 years old when he got here, so naturally he went to school here. Now, Uncle Ernie, I'm not sure. I think he was 2 or 3 years older than my father. My father was the youngest of all the siblings.
six.
Yeah.
Oh, I sort of assumed that they were here when they were older, but they weren't.
No, they
so
were young.
He really
Yeah.
probably spoke perfect English
Yeah.
and went to school and everything.
Well, my father spoke no English, and so naturally he learned by going to school. And the teacher that he had was my elementary principal. Her name was Mrs. Fikes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So was this a one-room schoolhouse, or was it quite a large school that he went to?
I would imagine it was a one-room schoolhouse, because it was back in the where the mystery spot is located. It was back further on that road.
Oh, I see. So were they farming, or what kind of
Well,
dairy? Or?
Uncle Fred was going to open a resort, and it never got off the ground. Why, I have no idea. And then later on in years, he lived back there by himself, sort of like a hermit like.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So, but he must have been quite a bit older than than your father.
Well, I would say so, because there's, what, five children in between?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, your dad came at 11 then,
Mm-hmm.
with his brothers and sister, and his parents didn't come until later, but they
Yes.
did come.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And so, I assume, can you tell me, he grew up in Santa Cruz then, or in
Yes.
way back?
Yeah.
And did he stay there for most of the time?
All his life. Yeah. He stayed in Santa Cruz all his life.
The same place where his,
No. Then later on, then he went into the army, my father, and then after he got out of the army, I think he went up north and was a lumber, what do you call those?
lumberjack or a
Yeah,
lumberman or?
And then he came back, and then he and Uncle Ernie purchased a dairy, and they had home delivery, which was raw milk, and they had that for maybe, I'm just guessing, 17, 18 years.
Mhm.
And then that is when they sold the dairy to Carl Detling and Joey Sigerish.
I didn't realize that. So let's go back. So your father was in the army,
Mm-hmm.
I guess during the war? World War One?
But when he was going to be shipped overseas, the war ended. So, yes, the war was on when he was in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he came when he was 11, so how old, what year did he come here?
I have the
You have the dates,
date, but
yeah.
I would have to look that up, yeah.
So in 1917 or 19, I guess, when the war ended, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
He was in the service.
Yes.
And then I guess he mustered out right after that.
I imagine so.
Oh, wow, lucky him.
Yeah.
So he saw no combat?
No.
Oh, that's great. How about his other brothers? Were they in the...
No, he was the only one that went into the army or into a service of some kind. Yeah.
Okay. So now he's about, 11. I don't know how old he is now. When he got out of the service, maybe 18, 19, something like that.
I would think maybe a little older, a couple of years older.
So how did he end up meeting your mother in Alameda?
Well, I guess she and my aunt, her sister, they used to come down to Santa Cruz for vacation, and I guess how they knew each other, I have absolutely no idea. But they would come down for vacation, and this is how I met her.
Oh, I see. So he didn't go there. He actually met her down.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, now let's go on about you.
Okay.
So he met and married your mother,
Mhm.
and can you go on now from there about like when you were born and what happened with them? And
Well, I have an older brother, and then I was born in Santa Cruz, January 27th, 1926. And when I was 9 months old, my mother left and they got a divorce. And my father was awarded custody of me. And then my brother went with my mother.
oh, so there, I didn't know that. You had a brother?
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
When I was 16. And I met my mother for the first time when I was 18.
Wow. So your mother and father were married how long before the divorce?
Oh, again, I have the dates, but offhand I don't know. I would imagine maybe 3-4 years.
Okay, and so she had one child, a boy, and what was his name?
Glenn.
Glenn Kinzli.
Yeah.
Okay, and then do you remember him? No, you were 9 months old.
Yeah.
And then you were born, and then she went with the boy.
Yes.
And where did she go?
I have no idea.
Okay, so
No.
you just like no contact.
Yeah,
with her.
no. So
What was that like meeting her?
weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't, growing up, I would say I hate my mother, why did she leave me and all of that. And then my father, he never never said a bad word about her. I mean, he would defend her. And it was kind of different, maybe just like meeting you for the first time,
Right.
Yeah.
That must have been hard. I mean, if she had died, it would be one thing, but
Yeah.
growing up knowing that she left and you had a brother, you knew that too. Then.
Yes, yeah.
You always knew that.
Yes.
They didn't keep that from you. That must have been a little bit difficult.
Well, that's all I knew,
Right.
so I don't think it was difficult. It was never, growing up, it was always, poor Eleanor, she doesn't have a mother, and it was, and that's all I knew,
So how did your dad handle this? What was your living situation?
We lived on the dairy, which was called Eastside Dairy, and in the house was my uncle and my grandmother, and then later on Uncle Ernie got married, and then there was his 3 children and myself, and then at 16 is when I moved up to Centerville.
Okay, so you always had someone else was in the house. Who took care of you when you were a child? Your father?
No, my Aunt Lisetta. She took care of me until I was 3 years old, and then she passed away. And then my grandmother took care of me until I was 10. Of course, we're in this house with other people, but she took care of me until I was 10, and then she passed away.
Okay, so and by the time you were 10, then...
Then there was my Uncle Ernie and his wife, and of course some of the children were born here, but...
So Ernie, who did Ernie marry?
He married Margaret. Her maiden name was Steiner. And she
Oh, I
was from
see.
San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they got married and lived at the house there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they had 3 children while you were growing up there.
Yes.
And who were they?
Well, I should say they had 4, but one died, I think, at birth or soon after. There was Evelyn, who was the oldest, and then Ernie Jr., and then Philip.
Okay. So they were all born in Santa... Of course, now the Eastside Dairy was a different location than Where was the location of Eastside Dairy?
It was within the city limits of Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay. Did it have a street address or a...
I can never forget. It's 101 Mentel Avenue.
Mentel.
Mentel.
Wow. And so how many head of cattle did they have?
Oh golly, I don't remember.
So they started out before you were born,
Oh
actually.
yeah, yeah.
With this milking cattle and delivering the milk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did they have a processing plant at that time?
At
or?
the time they sold it raw milk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had Jersey, Guernsey, cows.
So, did they improve the dairy as time went on? I mean, did they milk them in a barn? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Mhm.
And
And they had they put a new milking barn that was improved.